Welcome back, everybody. It's been quite the past few weeks. Been pretty busy with a few events here and there, a couple of drag races. Somebody's been making a lot of cakes. I've been waiting on parts, but we're gonna do stuff today. Okay, so where we left off with this one, we had installed this nice new bull bar and these nice off-road lights, but we haven't had a chance to wire them up because it gets kind of complicated once you add more than like one set of lights to your truck, because it starts to turn into a bird's nest of wiring, and it's hard to make it look presentable. So I started looking into the best way to do that. I found a few options as far as like aftermarket switch panels, which is what we got right here. There's a nicer version of this called the Emu or something like that, but it was like $1,200. I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like paying over $1,000 for some relays. So yeah, this is really good for the price. This was about $250-ish, something like that. And what this does basically is it lets you run one wire. Well, it's like 4 wires, but they're like together in one thing into your cabin, and it gives you a switch panel inside, and then it puts your relay box in the engine bay, and you can connect all your lights, winches, whatever you want to the fuse box that's in the engine bay, so you don't got to run wires all over the place. So it keeps it a lot neater. It just generally works better because you have all your switches in one place inside instead of having to like find places to drill and like stick random switches that don't look like they belong in your truck. So I think it's gonna work out a lot better. We just gotta find a place to put it because it's kind of big. And this is a 8 circuit switch panel. So you can see you got your 8 fuses and relays all built in there. PCB is real nice looking, good quality. All the connections are weather tight. So like I said, for 250 bucks, this is more than adequate. And you got your fused power lead even. And then it came packaged a lot nicer than this, by the way. I just been messing with this trying to figure out where to put it. You have your switch panel that goes inside. And this is, you know, a metal case and everything. It feels like really high quality. And you have all your switches, which comes with labels. So depending on whatever you're going to attach the switch to, you have plenty of options. Roof lights, bumper lights, corner lights, zombie lights, Sasquatch. Can never have enough Sasquatch lights. So that should be good. But initially I wanted to put it on this side next to the battery because that would make for the simplest wiring, and also the spot where I want to run it through the firewall is right here too. I really wanted to put it here, but as you can see, there's really nowhere to put it on this side. I've seen a few people actually just like Velcro it on top of an existing fuse box like that. I don't know, I just think that looks kind of stupid. And if you need to access the bottom fuse box, you got to move all the upper wiring around and potentially short something, or you know, that's just not ideal. And back here also would have been great, but there's another fuse box. There's like 3-4 freaking fuse boxes in this engine bay. Like Nissan really couldn't, you guys couldn't put it in one spot, really? It's great. So what I opted to do was put it on this side, which also, as you can see, doesn't have a whole lot of real estate, but we can just yank this baby out. And then, to fix that, we have a new air filter. So, obviously I don't gotta explain K&N, been around forever, great filters. What I probably do need to explain is this isn't reversible. I literally just cut the end off of the airbox, and I measured first to make sure that there was a filter that would fit on this, because last thing you want is to cut a giant hole in your airbox and not be able to seal it back up. That is a 3 3/4 inch diameter. And so all I did was cut this end off of the airbox and then just cleaned up the end. So instead of having like some aftermarket adapter replacement thing or something, you just have your stock MAF housing and you just put a filter on it and you're done. That's it. That's all you gotta do. You don't gotta deal with the crappy paper filters anymore. You can just keep washing that one. So yeah, you just gotta tighten this back up like normal. Okay, so now as you can see, we have tons of room for activities. So this is where we're gonna put this fuse box. Now we'll have a grand total of 5 fuse boxes in the engine bay. So something like that. Luckily this comes with enough slack so you can route it wherever you need to. This is what I was talking about. I wanted it on that side so you wouldn't need to run the wiring across like the radiator fan or the headers or anything like that. But it is what it is. Might be able to just bolt it straight to the fender well, but I don't know yet. First we gotta see how our wiring is gonna lay out. Right, I'm gonna see if we can run the wiring under this cooling panel here. And to do that, we need to take the grill off because it's on top of this part. So we would have had to take it off anyway to deal with the wiring for the spotlights and everything anyway. So you guys should be familiar with these little clips by now. Okay, so we're gonna take this cooling panel off and see if there's enough room to route our power wire through there. I was actually thinking of putting the fuse box in here because there's plenty of room right back here, but you kind of want the fuse box to be accessible in the event that something goes wrong and you need to check on it. So this would be highly inconvenient. Some handy dandy zip ties. Alright, so for this part, I settled on putting it here because it's just seems to make the most sense. I was thinking about putting it up here, but then that kind of makes it hard to inspect your fuses and stuff. So it'd be best if it was facing up like this. And I think that's what we're gonna go with. Right now I'm just using some self-tappers just to secure it to the fender well here. So now we have our fuse box secured and we have our power wire that's run more or less where it's going to go, and there's 2 more wires that come off the unit. This red one is an ignition trigger and it's optional, so I don't think we need to use this. This unit's meant to be used in like anything from like, you know, an off-road Jeep to something like this, to like a Razor or something like that. I think this is for something like a Razor where it's completely open and anybody can just go in there and mess with your buttons and stuff. This would be so that the unit doesn't turn on without the vehicle being on. I don't think we need that because, well, the switches are going to be inside and you can turn the unit on and off from that panel. I'm not going to use this one, but the other one is the ground for the unit, which you do need. And there's conveniently a couple of ground straps to the chassis right here. So that's what we're going to do. But this red one, we're just going to take off right now. All right, so now that's good to go. All right, so now this ground wire is just going to end up going nice and short from here to there. Could also do it right here since we're not going to be using that airbox mount anymore to give it its own little mounting spot. Okay, so now we have all our bolt hole locations pretty much marked. I was basically using the self-tap screws as pilot holes for something a little nicer. Okay, so we're going to be using these, which are riv nuts. This is basically a threaded insert. So we drill out the pilot holes to fit this, and then we have a special set of like pliers basically that will kind of crimp this into the sheet metal here, and that'll let us have a permanent set of threads wherever we need them to bolt and unbolt the fuse box as we need to. All right, so this is our riv nut tool. There's the name and part number if you need it. I got it off Amazon, just like everything else. I think it was like 40 bucks or something. I don't remember. We'll have the link down below if you're interested. But basically you put your riv nuts on here, and then this, when you put it together, it'll like crimp this around the sheet metal that you put the hole in, and that'll secure it in place. Just like that. Should also add with these, you don't want to like squeeze too hard on it, especially with these smaller thread pitch inserts, because you will like crumple the whole thing into itself and like screw up the threads if you like try to completely close the tool. So like those small ones, I was only going to about there, and yeah, the tool can close all the way, but if you do that, you're probably gonna just ruin the fitting. Ask me how I know. All right, now we should be able to line up our fuse box back and bolt it down. The kit also comes with its own hardware, and luckily it happens to be the same thread pitch as the rivet nuts that I already had, so super convenient. All right, so now it's secured in place using something a little more professional than sheet metal screws. So now we can move on to this ground wire. Looks like we'll just need to put a ring terminal on this and bolt it down here, I guess. All right, so we got our new ring terminal here, and we're also going to use a little bit of heat shrink. You might notice that this is supposed to be for a larger gauge wire, but this is all I got right now, and it should be fine. I'll show you guys a little trick as to how to make this work. So we're going to measure out about how much length we're going to need. I'll just do a little extra. And we're going to strip about an inch or so off of there. We're going to twist it and then fold it back a bit. And now that's just about perfect. But before that, don't forget to put on your heat shrink. All right, so now we can go ahead and crimp this down. And cover that with your heat shrink. Then get a lighter. It only shrinks down so much, so this wire was too thin for this terminal, so I had to kind of get an oversized heat shrink so that it would fit over the terminal, and I kind of figured it wouldn't close all the way around the wire itself, but it should be fine. And now you just get a nice 10mm bolt that I found. It's all set. All right, so this side comes with the fuse for your main power wire and a terminal already installed on this side. And this one actually is like the perfect length for our application here, so I'm not gonna need to shorten or lengthen this at all. One thing I do want to try is secure this fuse somewhere so it's not just dangling around. It doesn't really have a good surface to put double-sided tape on, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. Some Gorilla mounting tape. Oh, that looks pretty good. At least it's not flopping around everywhere. Now we just connect this to our positive side of our battery terminal, and luckily the Patrol has plenty of room for that. So we're just gonna loosen that. Our battery terminal is a little loose. Okay, so now we need to find a place to run the wire through for the control panel from the engine bay to the cabin. And I actually already found a place just because we had the light bar wired up. Not completely wired up, but it was mostly in place. But first thing we need to do is remove this lower panel here, which is pretty easy. It's just little clips that hold it on. So you push down on this front edge and then pull back, and that'll get it out of place. Then you just twist this little light bulb and you can remove the panel. I'm gonna remove this little screw. And that's probably enough. You can kind of see where I have the wire running through there. It's actually the drain for the AC core on the under the dash, and it has just enough space above the drain that you can fit a wire through, and I just made a hole and kind of clearanced it out to fit the wire through. So now we need to take apart the center console to pull that connector out. All right, so welcome to the control deck of the Razor Crest. Here's where we had our switch for the light bar. Just kind of laying there because I didn't want to drill any holes in the dash because I wasn't sure where I wanted this yet. And it's a good thing I didn't, because this is a much better, cleaner solution. So to get this out of here, we need to remove this center console portion of the dash, which I don't know if you guys have seen before, but we did this nice vivid forged carbon wrap on it, because screw the faux plastic wood that was in here. It's gross. I still hate the brown piping. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, ugh. Anyway, so to get this center console out, first need to get the shifter off, which has this little chrome collar on it. And you just yank that down, and then there's this little retainer clip, which is kind of tricky. So yeah, pull that off. this comes right off. Then put it back because you will lose it. So, yeah. Then this should be ready to come off. And you just yank this whole thing up. And there should be 1 or 2 connectors under it. And you can't even see this one. Okay. So those 2, and this whole piece comes out. So in case you want to wrap it, this is the way to go. And just put this away. So much room for activities now. Yeah, like I said, this is where our switch was. Just disconnect it from here. And we should be able to pull it all the way out. To get this wired through the firewall, I had to take the connector off of it, and that just involves depinning the terminals here. And you could use any suitable like flat pokey tool and just kind of shove it in there to bend the clip out of the way. And you can just pull the wire out. If you're going to reuse the connector, you want to make note of where each color went, but we're probably not going to reuse this since we have the switch panel, so I don't really care. Now we can get through that grommet a lot easier than if it had this whole thing on it. What we have to do is disconnect the drain from the AC core, and that's behind this little panel back here. And all you got to do to get this one off is pull it off gently. There's 2 clips on this side, one here, and then one in this top corner. So you want to try and like reach behind it and pop it out like that. And here's the drain for the AC, and the one we want to take off is this lower one here. And there's no clamps or anything, you just wiggle it off like that, and then pull it through. This is not going to be fun to get back in place, but it's necessary. So there, that's ready to come out. Now we can get under the vehicle and start taking it out. Okay, so now we gotta get under the truck to get to that AC drain grommet thing. So you want to get your picnic blanket for a nice romantic evening with your camera girl. So now we're under the vehicle and we've located our AC drain right here by the passenger side frame rail. I'd just like to add a nice touch by Nissan not installing this just straight down where it's going to drain onto your frame rail and rust it out in 3 years. So nice touch having it at a 90-degree angle where it's going to drip straight to the ground. So this grommet's what we want to take off, or we can just pull the wire through first. Alright, so there's our old cable, and then we can pop the grommet out with the hose. Alright. Okay, so this is our AC drain, and as you can see, the grommet itself is a little oval, and it has just enough room where you could get a wire through it. And what I did was just basically pry away at the grommet between the hose to like open it up a little bit. This was pretty tricky to do without cutting the hose, but it should let us get a wire through there, so we can just squish the hose and shove this guy through there. Might add, this one's trickier just because I can't depin the connector. So like, there's no way to get these terminals out of here. So luckily it fits, so not a huge deal. And then that's still pretty tight. You probably want to put some RTV silicone or something in there if you're worried about water getting in there. I don't have any at the moment, so we're just gonna go with this. Okay, so now we want to put our wire back through here. And then feed the hose back. Okay, we're gonna need to get back inside and pull all this slack through. Okay, so our wire and hose should be in here now. And we can pull this all the way in here. Okay, I think that's it. Now we put the hose more or less back where it went. Might want to add, you should probably be careful around this area. This doesn't feel super sturdy. So there, that's connected. And there's a piece of tape that holds it against the firewall. Just gonna put that back. Like some fabric tape. And then we got our wire that I'm not going to do anything yet because I'm still not sure where I want to put the panel. So we're going to leave this for now. And then we can try and seat the grommet in the hole of the firewall now. I don't know if it's going to work from in here, but give it a shot. Yeah, no, it's not really going to work. I have to go back under the car. You gotta make sure it's seated in all the way around. I'll prevent at least some water getting in there. And then we have our wire that we need to secure somewhere. That looks good. Ta-da. Factory. Okay, so now I'm gonna try and feed it around these AC lines and stuff to try and get the wire closer to the firewall. And then we're going to use a handy dandy zip tie. Alright, now we need to make sure everything's going to reach first. Alright, so what I'm thinking is running this wire along the back of the firewall here. There's already a huge harness already zip tied to the cowl here, so one more little wire isn't gonna hurt anything. And we're just gonna weave it through the brake master cylinder, which is the most complicated brake master cylinder I've ever seen, mind you. I guess that's the collision intervention system stuff. But what we want to do is just get a straight shot to the fuse box here, to the connector on this side. Like that. And just line up the connector. And get our handy dandy zip ties. Remember, always clip your zip ties. Don't be an animal. So I'm thinking tucking it behind here, that makes it look a little cleaner at least. And I'm just gonna put some more zip ties all along here. I need to move this out of the way. Looks like we just got two 10mm bolts holding this thing on. Huh. It's the first time I've seen the clips in like a lateral position. So yeah, unbolt these and pull forward. Now we got plenty of room here, and this intake manifold actually looks pretty decent. It's not too ugly like most things. But got some decent room to zip tie this now. And these zip ties actually came in the kit, so that's a pretty nice touch. Nobody will ever know. How would they know? They'll never know. So we have exactly this much wire to work with, and I'm still not really sure where I want to put the panel at. It's relatively small and pretty thin, and a good candidate is right there because it happens to be a pretty similar size. But this is where I put my phone, and then we would never be able to close this anymore. So I don't know how I feel about that. And it doesn't really fit in any of these spots. And it kind of fits sideways, but it's the same issue. You can't really close this. Not that we really close it that often. I mean, it usually does stay open, but still, I would like for it to be able to close. Another thing we could do is use the mounting system that it comes with and like bolt it here. At least then we might be able to like disconnect this and close it. I don't know. Seems kind of a pain in the ass. Another thing I liked was using this little spot because we never really used this, and this would be a really cool spot to put it because that's like super Starship style stuff right there. You're always having switches above you. It's pretty cool, but I don't think we have enough slack to like make it all the way up there. So I think that's kind of out of the question. That would be pretty cool though. I think down here might work too. These switches are all the same, so I might be able to put the driver's side seat heater on this spot and then have the two blanks on that side and maybe cover that up like that. I don't really see how we would attach this though. I don't know, it's looking like this little cubby is going to be the easiest solution right now. So I mean, we have to drill a hole in this. I don't want to drill a hole in stuff. Okay, we figured it out, I think. So what we're thinking is to run the wire into the center console here. That way we can pull it out and then set it in here when we need it. And it's even got a little channel for the wire that's meant for like your phone charger or something like that. But we're gonna use it for this, and yeah. Should work. I'll probably put some like Velcro or something on the back just to hold it in place better. Because it fits pretty nice in here, but it's still a little floppy, so. Okay, so while we still have this panel out of the way, we need to try and feed this through the back area here and then try to grab it from the center console area. There's not too much stuff in the way, so this shouldn't be too complicated. Alright, so there's our wire, and I just took the excess behind the carpet here. And we can put our panel back on here. And then we can put this panel back while we're here. Just twist your light back on there. And then locate your 3 tabs back there. And push in. And then up. Good as new. So this is the scary part. We need to drill a hole into this thing here. Whatever it's called, our glove box? It's not a glove box. Armrest? Sure.
Napkin holder?
Yes, the napkin holder. I want to try and get this as centered as possible, but can't really see down there. So we're just gonna guess. I mean, it doesn't really matter anyway, but I'd like to try and get it centered. And I think that's barely gonna reach. All right, now we put our center console shifter trim thing back in place. And there's 2 plugs. This one and then the one that goes into the mode dial control thing. Ta-da. Now we plug in that last plug. Ta-da! You just slide on your shifter that you hopefully didn't lose the clip to. And then put the trim ring back in place. And this should be all set. Now we got our cable for our controller. Like so. Bam. All right, that concludes the install of the Voswitch unit itself. So far, I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with the quality and the ease of install. I mean, it might have been a little complicated, but it seemed pretty straightforward to me. I highly recommend the unit so far. I mean, obviously we haven't tested it and we don't know any like long-term issues with it or anything like that, but so far it seems like a pretty high quality unit. Definitely worth the 250 bucks just in the convenience of like not having to drill a dozen holes in your firewall for a bunch of different lights and switches and stuff. So I'd highly recommend it. So thanks for sticking it through this long, and stay tuned to the next one where we're gonna actually wire all of our lights to the unit and get everything working. So if you like this content, do the thing. See you guys.